There is one rhythm that lets me run my team and manage my numbers on only 60 minutes of effort every Monday morning. It sounded impossible to me at first. Like when my first company crossed 7 figures in revenue, I was working 80 hours a week and probably 20 of them were spent just managing the team and the numbers. Every time suck inside your business is a data point showing you that you need a more efficient system. And the system I'm gonna give you in this video is called the Precision Scorecard. It is the foundation for everything I do, for the way that I operate companies, for the way that I measure growth, and it's so important to me that I literally built an entire software company called Precision around this one thing. Now, if you want the template that I'm getting ready to show you in this video, go to my Instagram, Matt Verlack, just follow me, send me a DM with the word scorecard, and I will give it away for free. Now, this whole process starts with something I call the weekly cadence. Every single business on earth sets annual goals, but very few operators actually know the right way to take those annual goals and break them down into smaller chunks where the work actually gets done. Here's the right way to think about it. So you've got your annual goal. Let's say this is an entire year. You've got a starting point and an ending point. You want to break that down, obviously, into 4 quarters, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. And this is where most companies stop, but here's the thing you gotta understand. Every quarter is actually comprised of 13 weeks. This is a big idea. When you set a quarterly goal, when you spec out that project or you architect that revenue plan, you have 13 shots on goal to accomplish it. You have 13 one-week periods to move the needle. And when you break it down that way, you understand that a quarter is not a very long period of time, and it's very easy to waste a large number of those 13 weeks. The weekly cadence is everything in business. But then we break it down even further. If the week is the atomic unit of this whole cadence, then every week is an opportunity to win or lose, which means every week needs to be graded, it needs to be assessed, and it needs to be reviewed. If you build that cadence inside of your company, your team will be focused on the 7 days inside the week. If you win the day over and over again, you will win the week. If you win the weeks over and over again, you'll win the quarter and win the year. But it starts with playing small. Now, in my world, a business week starts on a Monday and ends on a Sunday. And you have what I call a Monday morning ritual. Every Monday morning, you look at the data for the prior week, prior Monday to prior Sunday, and you review that 7-day period, compare it to the prior 7-day period, and figure out how you performed, compare it to your weekly goals. If you just closed a month, you also look at the monthly goals. But that Monday morning ritual is the foundation for everything. I do it as early as possible every single Monday morning because the results on that scorecard, when I look at the data from the prior week, are going to drive and inform the conversations that I have in my weekly meetings, the conversations that I have with my team, and the way that I prioritize the work that I personally need to accomplish in order to keep driving the business forward. This Monday morning ritual will break down if you don't get really good at setting weekly goals and gauging your progress partway through the month. There's a bit of math behind this. I'm going to teach you the right way to do it. So let's say you've got this monthly goal of doing $500,000 in sales. And let's say we're measuring this, I don't know, January. It's got 31 days. So the first step is to break down into a daily goal. So you take your 500K monthly goal divided by 31, means that you have a daily sales goal of $16,129 a day. Take that daily goal, multiply it by 7 days in a week, and your weekly goal is $112,903. That is what you track to. Most people will just take the 500K and they'll guesstimate. They'll just look at, where are we? Are we at 100? Are we at 150? I think we're like about halfway through the month. Maybe it'll be okay. You've probably heard this sound familiar, right? Do not do it this way. $112,903 is the goal. You either hit it or you don't. It is binary, it's quantifiable, you can count it. That's how you break down a weekly goal. But the next step is you also need to pace your monthly progress based on how far you are through the month. So let's say you're doing this on Monday, January 20th. That means that the week that you're measuring for ended on Sunday, January 19th. This will be important in a second. So in addition to knowing if you won or lost that actual week, right? Did you hit your $112,903 goal? When you look at how much your monthly actual is to date, you should know that 19 days through the month, if you're on track for your 500K, right? You take your daily goal times 19 days, and that leaves you at $306,452. So that is the exact point where you should be that far through the month in order to be on pace for your 500K. I call this a prorated goal. Doing this little bit of simple math gives you the two most important percentages that you need in order to evaluate your progress as you're working your way through a month and through a quarter. It gives you the weekly goal percentage, which in this example tells you for the week that ended on January 19th, as a single week, did I win or lose? And then the month-to-date prorated goal percentage, which means as I'm progressing through January, am I on track to hit the $500,000 goal specifically, and by how much? If you can answer these two things, you'll know if you won the week, you know if you're in a position to win the month, which then rolls up to the quarter and the year. This is the level of granularity that it takes to grow a business the right way. Just because you know how to find these numbers though, your work is not yet done, because unless you're running the business alone, if any of these numbers are off track, all it means is that you have to have a people conversation, and you can't do that without this next principle. Every metric needs a D.R.I. What is a D.R.I? I'm glad you asked. It's an acronym. It stands for Directly Responsible Individual. It was popularized by Steve Jobs at Apple, and it's very, very simple, but not always easy to do. The principle is that anything in the business, it can be a number, a metric, a goal, an OKR, a project, any type of outcome. It has to be owned by a single person, a single human being, not a department, not a group, not a team, not nobody. It's got to be owned by somebody with a name that is specifically accountable to making sure that they get the outcome that we set out to get. The thing that I love about the D.R.I. model is that it's insanely clear. You'll always know exactly who you need to talk to about any metric, any number, any project inside the business. It doesn't mean that they're doing all of the work on that project themselves. They're going to have to coordinate with other people, but they're the decision makers. They're the ones that will stand tall for getting the outcome and stand tall for the result. And once you get all this figured out, right, you've got the weekly cadence done, you've got the scorecard stood up, you've tracked your numbers weekly, you've got your goals broken down and paced and prorated, you've got DRIs assigned, you know who owns them, you might feel like the work is done, but the reality is all of that is just the pre-work, and it's leading up to one key rhythm. You run the weekly sync. And in my world, there's a very specific set of outcomes that need to come from a properly executed weekly sync, and I will share with you exactly what they are. The goal of the weekly sync is very straightforward. We need to review all of the pertinent data about the business very, very quickly and find the most important discussions and issues that we need to resolve and get as many of them resolved as we possibly can within the time that we have. The way that I do this is with 3 specific reviews that I do in order. The first is a review of the scorecard data. You open up the scorecard, you review the data that's in it, review the attainment to goal like we already talked about, and anything that's off track, we need to discuss. Now, the way that we discuss things is very, very specific. This is the key to the whole meeting, so please pay attention. The trap that people fall into is the first thing that's off track in the scorecard. They immediately start talking about it, spend 10 or 15 minutes on it, and you find that you run out of time to discuss things that might be more important, but just showed up later chronologically in the meeting. So we flag the issues, and if we decide that we need to address them, we add them to the discussion list. More on the discussion list in a minute. So we walk through the scorecard data, and anything that we think is a serious issue, if we can't resolve it in 2 sentences, we add it to the discussions list. From there, we go to a project review, where we want to just look at the updates about all the major projects that are in flight. I use the same type of, traffic light type assessment. If it's on track, we probably need to talk about it. If it's off track, we definitely want to talk about it. And if we think it's a serious issue that needs more than a couple of sentences, we add it to the discussions list. So those are the first 2. We review the scorecard, we review the projects, and anything that needs discussions, we add it to the list. And then the most important thing that we do before we start to actually process this list, which is just an open item in the meeting agenda that anybody can add anything to, is after you go through the first 2 reviews, you need to go through and actually reprioritize this list based on importance. Some teams like to vote on it or put little emojis on it if it's like a shared document. That's cool, you can do it if you want, it doesn't really matter, but at the end of the day, whoever owns this meeting needs to ensure that the most important stuff rises to the top, because this is where we're going to spend most of our time. In most companies, guys, you are going to have more things on this list every week than you can fit into a 60-minute meeting. That's fine, because a lot of the time there's also going to be stuff on this list that probably could have been a Slack message or probably could have been an email. This is why we prioritize the list. And this, honestly, is where we should be spending about 40 of the 60 minutes in the weekly sync, is nailing the most important stuff on the discussions list. Now, I feel like we just covered a ton of ground. We talked about tracking data in scorecards and doing math to do, prorated goals and a way to do a weekly sync properly. There's a lot there, and I want you to have the templates for everything. I've got them all for you. So just go to my Instagram, Matt Verlack. Make sure you follow me, send me a DM with the word scorecard, and I will share with you everything that we just reviewed in this video. Last but not least, please don't forget, hit the little button, subscribe to this channel, because I'm gonna keep sharing playbook after playbook of how I've run multiple 7- and 8-figure companies over the past 5 years, because honestly, I'm just on a mission to teach everything I know. I really appreciate your time. See you next time. Peace.